and 9 boards in his Trailblazers debut last night. And with his team getting the victory, he threw some shade at his old Knicks squad, tweeting, "Wow, that's how winning feels. I can get used to that."
Wow, he didn't have to take it there.
You know,
Why
I like
not?
Dennis, though.
I like it.
I like he speaks his mind, and he can put up points and rebounds. He
And
can't
he's not
defend.
playing. No, he can't
defend a lick, but he
the
can
single
score
coverage, you
and
can't stop him.
It's
He's
a
not
walking
playing, though.
double-double, but still, man, come on, man.
Hey.
They let you.
He went at LeBron. He went at LeBron, so he'll go at anybody.
Yeah, but throwing shade at the Knicks, he was the one that decided to opt in this year. He knew what the Knicks were
Well,
doing.
he got to get that money.
But he thought he would at least be playing.
Don't complain. Listen, you're getting paid $18 million.
Now it's time for your AT&T wake-up call. According to reports, the NBA is considering lowering the age limit to enter the draft from 19 to 18. The report also says this is not related to Zion Williamson's injury. Chris, would this be a good idea?
You know what? I think what's best for basketball at both levels, NCAA and the NBA, would be if players went to college for 2 or 3 years. However, what's fair in American life, in our society, is that you can go to the NBA when you're 18 years old, when you're right out of high school. I think that's more important than what might be best for the game of basketball. So, yeah, I think this is definitely going to happen, and I'm fine with it. Now you have the G League, which can serve as a buffer for those players that don't make it or get drafted. They can go to the D League. And I also think college should look at changing the rule where, look, if a kid enters the draft, doesn't get drafted, I think he should be able to go play in college. Like, I don't see why that has to be a rule. So if you put certain things in place to help the athletes as a safety net, then I'm definitely fine with it.
Yeah, Michelle Roberts and Adam Silver got to get this done because the other 2 major professional sports leagues, that being hockey and baseball, you can go straight from high school to the professional ranks. It should absolutely be allowed in basketball because we've seen some guys come out of high school and have success in the NBA.
A few.
Football is a little different, though.
Yeah,
Football is
I
a little
agree.
different.
I think physically,
Yeah.
99% of the kids would get maimed if they come out of high school.
Exactly.
You know?
To the Warriors, they barely beat the Kings last night, 125 to 123. Steph Curry had a casual 36 points on 10 three-pointers. Can he surprise the Warriors struggled last night?
Not surprised. First game back from the All-Star break. Those guys just trying to get back into the groove. But, I mean, Steph Curry hits 10 three-pointers like it's nothing, man. I mean, this is his 5th 10 three-pointer game this year. It's an NBA record. So, I mean, it's just amazing how he has revolutionized the game with being able to be such a prolific shooter.
I like to claim that I was the first person on air to say he's the best shooter in NBA history. I think I was. So
Claim that.
Mark Jackson
Mark it
said
down.
Clay and Steph were the best shooting backcourt, which is true. I think they're the best backcourt, period, of all time. But Steph would be in the MVP race. We're talking Giannis, Paul George, James Harden, if he hadn't missed 11 games. I'm not saying he would win it, but he would be in the conversation. But only 2 players ever have won it while missing 11 or more games, Bill Walton and Allen Iverson. So he really doesn't have a chance.
It's been incredible. Finally, James Harden fouled out with less than a minute and a half left to play in last night's loss to the Lakers. Harden was called for 4 offensive fouls throughout the course of the game. Needless to say, he was not happy with the officiating. Take a listen.
Scott Foster, man, he's, you know, I never really talk about officiating or anything like that, but just rude and arrogant. I mean, you aren't able to talk to him throughout the course of a game. And it's like, how do you build that relationship with officials? You know, so, and it's not even that call. Like, it's just, you know, who he is on that floor. It's pretty frustrating. And I mean, and I'm probably gonna get hit, but honestly, I don't really say anything. I'm probably a pretty quiet guy to myself, but it's one of those things where you can't voice your opinion. You can't have a conversation with someone that's officiating the game, and then, you know, you're getting attacked. It's pretty sad.
You feel like it's a personal issue?
Yeah, for sure. For sure it's personal. For sure. Like, I don't think you should be able to even, you know, officiate our games anymore, honestly.
Wow, Chris.
Very strong.
To say the least. What do you make of Harden's comments?
I know Scott Foster. Our kids went to the same acting camp before, so I like him. He's a nice guy. I understand. Everybody's going to look at Harden and say, hold on. Even players say, man, you benefit from calls more than any other player in the league, so stop complaining. I get that. That's fair. But I get what Harden is saying about, and if I don't know if this is the case with Scott and players or not, but that you can't talk to him, you can't banter with him, you can't even question a call. if that's true, I get that, because a lot of officials, like Dick Bavetta, who's one of the historically great officials, he would let players talk to him, and as long as it's respectful, maybe there's you joke a little bit and it lightens the mood. Even if it's a bad call, if you can joke with the player, then it kind of lightens it for the player, and they let it go. So I get that. You do want that as a player, to just be able to, hey, what do you know, be able to have a conversation with them. So I get the frustration if that's what they're feeling from Scott.
Yeah, it's clear that James Harden feels a way after hearing that commentary after the game. But to your point, I think the communication between the players and the officials is important, because the players need to know how the official is going to be able to call the game so they can adjust accordingly. And it's clear last night that the Rockets didn't make the adjustments and the Lakers did. I mean, the Lakers doubled up on the Rockets in free throw attempts. And then, of course, James Harden and Chris Paul ultimately end up fouling out of that game. The Rockets didn't shoot a free throw in the last 20 minutes of the game. So, I mean, there was a little bit of a confusion in terms of how you're going to officiate the game. And if we're going to say that last night's game was playoff basketball for the Lakers, then I think that it's important for both teams to have an understanding of how Scott Foster is going to officiate that game.
I also thought Harden, there was one call in particular where Rondo started kind of riding him up the court, and Harden got called for an offensive foul. I thought that was shaky, because it didn't look to me like Harden purposely, or, you know, really tried to elbow. He got hit in the nose, Rondo. Yeah, so I thought that, look, when two stars foul out of a game, you're going to question it. In the NBA, when does that ever happen?
True. I would say Michael Smith made the call that fouled James Harden out, so it was not Scott Foster. It's been a tenuous relationship between referees and players over the course of the last year, 2 years, and there's been a lot of new referees, and so I think we have seen less dialogue or allowed dialogue between players and officials throughout the course of these last few seasons. I think it's maybe a little more surprising with Scott Foster, since he's been reffing in the NBA for 25 years. I do think, though, to a certain extent, so I'm not saying it was necessarily this case last night, Chris Paul, you know, he was on Scott Foster last year. You remember it kind of called him out. But there's a lot of talking between players and referees. And so I think they're trying to find the balance of how much do we can communicate, but there's also a lot of chirping, a lot of talking. You know, whether it's gestures after every single call. And so I think there's a balance, too, between officials trying to find that ground of, okay, I don't want to listen to you after every single call.
That's a good point.
Yeah, but here's the thing. The fans are showing up to see the star players. They ain't showing up to see the guys with the whistles in their mouth. So, I mean, well, you know, you got to make sure that the star players understand how you're going to call the game.
James Harden gets a lot of calls.
If things like this keep happening, where all of a sudden the Lakers are going to the line way more than their opponents, and stars are getting in foul trouble, if not fouling out, then people are going to start to say, oh, they're trying to get the Lakers in the playoffs, and LeBron, you know what I mean? So I'm not saying that was the case last night, but that will happen with people, because the NBA has more conspiracy theories than any other league.
Well, with that being said, do you think at all in those were powerful words, because James Harden didn't just attack Scott Foster, in how he officiated. He said he believes it's personal. He talked about his attitude on the floor and his personality. Do you think in any way we've had so much discussion about the style of play that James Harden plays at and how he plays, and how, you know, if it's pleasing, and do people enjoy it? Do they like it? In any way, do you think that factors into the mind of officials? Do you think they start to hear some of the talk that goes around, or the way in which, you know, we're starting to pick apart James Harden and his style of play?
Well, I think that could be a piece of it, because perception is reality, right? And so everybody's saying that James Harden is gimmicking his way to 30-plus points a night. But at the same time, I think it's important that the officials are fair with both teams. And so when you're trying to get insight as a player into how the official is going to call the game, I think the official has the responsibility, like it's a part of his job description, to make sure that all the players that are on the court understand how they're going to officiate the game. That's important. I mean, these are the best athletes in the world, so they will be able to adjust, but you just have to establish the standard and call it fairly on both sides.
Yeah, I think to your point, it could affect the officials. Look, we've seen superstar calls for years. We saw Michael Jordan's famous shot against Utah. He clearly pushed off. And there was always talk that officials, being human beings, they get it. These guys are superstars, too. And they may even be a little impacted by that, where you make a call on a role player that you wouldn't make on the superstar. I mean, there's a reason you rarely see superstars get in foul trouble, even though everybody's physical, you know. So, yeah, I think they could.
And they try to be transparent.